Good day, grade 8 learners. Welcome to the Natural Sciences lesson. My name is Tobegile Tebe, and this program is proudly brought to you by the Houghton Department of Education. Our knowledge area is Life and Living, grade 8. And our topic for today is interactions and interdependence within an ecosystem. But we're going to be focusing on the subtopic balance in an ecosystem. Let's check our lesson objectives for this lesson. Remember, we need to aim at achieving something. What is it that we're going to achieve? Grade 8. We're going to explain how an ecosystem is balanced. We're also going to list the natural factors that disturb the balance in an ecosystem. And then we're also going to state the human factors that disturb the balance in an ecosystem. And we get all this from the CAPS document, page 38. And then pre-knowledge. When we're looking at pre-knowledge, we're looking at what we've done in the past. We're looking at the foundation. Remember, this is not the first time we are doing interactions and interdependence within an environment. Remember, when you're in grade 5 and 6, you did the concept of an ecosystem. And then let's check the pictures that are appearing on our screen. You can see a bee pollinating a flower, and you can see insect eating plants. And then we've got the plant. Remember, the plant is a producer. Why are we saying the plant is a producer? The plant is a producer because it produces its own food, and we call them autotrophs. Do you get it? And then we've got consumers. Consumers don't produce their own food, but we are dependent on plants. Do you get that? And then plants give us what? Food and shelter. All right. And then the animals eat plants. We've got a certain type of animals, like the herbivores. They depend directly on plants. We've got the grazers and the omnivores. All right. For example, if we're talking about grazers, we're talking about cows. And if we're talking about browsers, we are talking about goats and giraffes. You get it? These benefit directly from plants. And then we've got other animals in the food chain, the omnivores. The omnivores benefit directly from plants and also eat meat. They also eat other animals. For example, we've got human beings, we've got dogs, we've got pigs. All those are omnivores. And then we've got carnivores. We've got different groups of carnivores. We've got the predators. These hunt for their prey. For example, we've got the lions, the tigers, the cheetahs, the leopards. They hunt for their prey. They hunt the other animals, kill them, and eat them. And then we've got scavengers. When we're talking about scavengers, we are talking about those animals that will look for dead animals, all right, and eat them. They can even eat decaying meat. These are scavengers. For example, we've got a bird that is called a vulture. It is a scavenger. And then we also have insectivores. These organisms eat insects and other small invertebrates. For example, a chameleon, it is an insectivore. Do you get it? All these are carnivores. Therefore, we've got animals, different categories of animals. Some are herbivores, omnivores, and carnivores. And then what happens? We've got decomposers. Decomposers break down dead matter. They break down the dead trees or even dead animals. Just imagine if there were no decomposers. There will be bodies lying around and a lot of trees lying around. All right. But we've got decomposers that act on dead matter. They are recycling the nutrients back into the soil. Remember, the soil has to be fertile so that the plants will grow. They will flourish. Okay. And then the plants are giving the soil nutrients. And the animals also are giving the soil nutrients. Do you get that? And then the soil in return is giving water and nutrients to the plants. Therefore, it is a cycle. Let's move on. And then we've got feeding relationships. Remember, we started on feeding relationships in grade 8. And then we've got consumers and also producers. When we are talking about consumers, the consumers don't produce their own food, but we are dependent on plants. And then we've got the producers. When we're talking about the producers, we are talking about what? The plants. Plants produce their own food. How do they produce their own food? Remember what happens. I'll talk about photosynthesis. What happens during photosynthesis? Remember, we've got the requirements. The requirements of a plant. In order for the plant to grow and produce its own food, it needs radiant energy from the sun. It also needs carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. It also needs water from the soil, all right? So that they will produce their own food. They are the producers. And then we get something in return. What are the products? We get food from plants. Other sources will say glucose or even sugars. All right. That is what we are getting from plants. And we get a byproduct, oxygen, that we desperately need for what? For breathing. So that respiration will take place. And then energy will be released from the food. So that will be energetic. As it is, we are in class now. We are participating. We are understanding this lesson. Why? Because we've got energy. We are energetic. Do you get it? Good. And then let's look at this chart here. We've got heterotrophs. When we are talking about heterotrophs, we are talking about consumers. Do you get it? And when we are talking about autotrophs, we are talking about producers. Let's look at heterotrophs. These are consumers. We've got herbivores. Herbivores benefit directly from plants. Do you get it? And then under herbivores, we've got the grazers and also the browsers. All these are herbivores. They benefit directly from plants. Why am I saying they benefit directly from plants? It is because they feed on plants. And then we've got the omnivores. Omnivores also benefit directly from plants and also indirectly from plants. If I say directly from plants, remember omnivores feed on plants and also on meat. For example, human beings, dogs, pigs. All right. And then they benefit directly from plants because they eat plants. And then indirectly because they eat meat. They eat other animals. All right. And then we've got the carnivores. Carnivores benefit indirectly from plants. Why are we saying indirectly from plants? It is because they eat other animals. All right? Carnivores eat other animals. And we've got different types of carnivores. We've got the predators. When we're talking about the predators, we are talking about those animals that hunt for their prey. For example, we've got the lions, we've got the tigers, we've got the cheetahs. They are predators. They hunt for their prey. And then we also have scavengers. Scavengers are those animals that look for dead animals. They feed on dead animals. Right. For example, we've got a bird that is a scavenger. Which bird is it? It is a vulture. A vulture is a scavenger. It feeds on dead animals. Even on decaying meat, scavengers eat decaying meat. And then we've got insectivores. They are also carnivores. Insectivores are those organisms that feed on insects and small invertebrates. For example, a chameleon. It is an insectivore. All these are carnivores because they are feeding on other animals. And then we've got decomposers. You'll come across decomposers in each and every stage of the food chain or the food pyramid or trophic level. The decomposers break down dead matter. It can either be a plant or even an animal. It breaks it down, all right? It recycles the nutrients back into the soil. Do you get that? Good. Therefore, the decomposers are very important. For example, we've got bacteria, fungi, even mold. All right. All these are decomposers. Do you get that? Let's move on. And then for our baseline activity, let's check the questions. Then I'll give you time to write these ones. Question number 1 says, draw a simple food chain. Question number 2, classify plants, scavengers, predators, and insectivores, and decompose it into their respective feeding groups. Classify plants, scavengers, predators, and decomposers into their respective feeding groups. I'll give you 3 minutes to answer the questions. Let's start writing right now. Good. Welcome back, grade 8. Hope you are done answering the questions. Question number 1 says, draw a simple food chain. Question number 2, classify plants, scavengers, predators, insectivores, and decomposers into their respective feeding groups. All right, let's check the solution for question number 1. Draw a simple food chain. You can draw any food chain, but the one that I've drawn for you is grass, grasshopper, then bird. Right, let's go to the next one. It says classify plants, scavengers, predators, insectivores, decomposers into their feeding groups. When you are classifying these into their feeding groups, you must start with the producers because that's where they get their food from. And the producer here is the plant. Why are you saying the producer is the plant? The plants are the only producers. The consumers here don't produce their own food. Do you get that? And then the other producers, we've got algae. All right. And then let's look at the producer here. We've got plants. And then we've got animals that feed on plants. We've got herbivores. All right. These are the consumers. Remember the producers, we call them the autotrophs. And then the consumers are called the what? The heterotrophs. These don't produce their own food, but they are dependent on plants. And then we've got herbivores. Herbivores, they benefit directly from plants. And herbivores, we've got the grazers, for example, cows. And then we also have browsers, for example, goats and what? And giraffes. These are browsers. And then we've got other animals that depend directly and indirectly from plants. For example, we've got omnivores. Omnivores are those animals that will eat plants and they also eat meat. For example, human beings, dogs, and even pigs. They are omnivores. And then we've got a certain group of animals that don't eat plants, but they eat what? They eat other animals. These are carnivores. Carnivores have got different groups. We've got the predators. Predators are those animals that will hunt for their prey. For example, we've got the lions. We've got the cheetahs. They hunt for their prey. They feed on other animals, but they hunt for them. These are the predators. And then we also have the scavengers. The scavengers are those animals that will look for dead animals. They feed on dead animals. They can even feed on decaying meat. All right. We've got different organisms that are scavengers. For example, we've got a bird that is called a vulture. It is a scavenger. It feeds on meat only, but looks for dead animals. And then we've got insectivores. Insectivores are carnivores. For example, we've got a chameleon. It feeds on other insects and even on small invertebrates. We call those insectivores, but they are all carnivores. Do you get it? And then we've got decomposers. You come across decomposers in each and every stage. Why am I saying so? Because decomposers break down dead matter. They break down dead matter. It can be a plant or even an animal. All right. They play a vital role in our lives because they break down matter. Do you get it? Just imagine if we didn't have decomposers, we would be having a lot of dead animals, a lot of dead bodies lying around. All right. But the decomposers are playing a vital role. They break down dead matter. They recycle the nutrients back into the soil. Remember, the earth doesn't have enough nutrients. Nutrients are scarce. Therefore, we need decomposers to break them down. Decomposers even break human waste. We use them in the sewer system, all right? So that they break down the solid waste and then we can use it as manure. They can even work or break down the liquid waste. Then we can recycle and then we can water our flowers and our lawns using recycled water. Do you get it? Therefore, decomposers are very important. And decomposers, the examples of decomposers, we've got bacteria, we've got molds, and we also have fungi. These are some of the examples of decomposers. All right. Who got everything correct? Wow, that's good. But even if you didn't get everything correct, you will next time because now you have understood. Let's look at the terms. Remember, we need to define terms. In each and every lesson, we need to define terms. And these terms, you will come across them in your exams. And they carry about 2 marks. Okay? Then, let's make use of those 2 marks. As from now, grade 8 up to grade 12, you'll be defining terms. Therefore, pay particular attention. We've got the first one, ecosystem. What do you think an ecosystem is? If we're talking about an ecosystem, we are talking about the living and the non-living. And then, when we're talking about the living, what is it that is living? Plants and animals. They are living. And what about the non-living? When we're talking about the non-living, we're talking about soil, about water, about rocks, about the sun, right? About the temperature. Therefore, the non-living, we're talking about the conditions, all right? And then, if we're looking at the living and the non-living, there is an interaction within an environment, okay? It is all the living and non-living things in an environment and the different ways in which they interact with each other. For example, you come across a community. You still remember what a community is, don't you? All right. A community is when different animals are within an environment. It can be different populations or just different animals. And then there is a drawing factor. For example, most of the times, if you visit a game park, what will you see? Especially near the rivers, you will see a community. You find a community. All right. It means they are different animals and they are coming to drink water. And then they will be within that environment and they will interact with the living and the non-living. And then what about floods? When we are talking about floods, it is an overflow of a large amount of water beyond its normal limits. It's an overflow. Then we call those floods. All right. And then droughts. When there is drought, what will be happening? How can you define drought, grade 8? All right. Let's listen to this. It is a prolonged period of abnormally low rainfall leading to a shortage of water. That is drought. All right. And when there is drought, the plants don't grow. The animals start dying. Why? Because there is no food. Do you get it? Let's proceed. We've got pollination. When we're talking about pollination, let's look at pollution now. When we're talking about pollution, it is harm done to an environment by the release of substances and harmful materials produced usually by human activities. That is pollution. All right. And then we've got pollutants. These are chemicals or wastes that contaminate the water, air, or even the soil. For example, if we're talking about pollutants, if the water is polluted by pollutants, at times the factories or individuals dump their waste chemicals into rivers, and then the marine life will suffer and die. That's polluting water. And then air pollution. At times we burn plastic, we burn litter, all right? And then our air will be polluted, all right? And then what about soil? At times we dump chemicals in the soil, and then the soil become infertile, all right? Do you get that? Good. Let's move on. And then we've got fossil fuels. When we are talking about fossil fuels, we are talking about energy-containing compounds such as coal, oil, or even natural gas. These are fossil fuels. And then what about poaching? When we talk of poaching, we are talking about illegal killing of animals. That is poaching. Do you get it? Especially at game parks. We've got a challenge of poachers. They poach animals, especially the rhino. They kill the rhinos. Why? Because they want their horn. Okay. And then balance between organisms and resources in an ecosystem. Let's look at an ecosystem. It consists of communities of organisms that interact with one another within their environment. When we're talking about community, We are talking about different types of animals. They will be interacting within an environment. Do you get that? For example, if you've got grazers, you've got omnivores, you've got carnivores, all in a community. Mostly you come across a community when there is a drawing factor, for example, a river, all right? Any river source, then the animals will go there. Then there will be an interaction, okay? All right, let's move on. We've got different pictures here that will show different communities. It shows different ecosystems, okay? We've got marine life, we've got desert life, grasslands, equatorial rainforest. All these are different ecosystems, and there are animals that live in these different ecosystems because animals can adapt, all right? Adapt, what do I mean if I say adapt? They can change. Do you get that? They can change. For example, we've got desert plants. We also have animals that can survive in the desert. For example, a camel, it can survive in the desert. Why? Because it can go for days without drinking water. It can go for days without eating. And it can even eat thorns. The mouth is rubbery, therefore it doesn't hurt itself. Therefore it can survive in a desert. And it is muscular. And it can walk, it is very strong, it can walk on sand. You get that? And on the other hand, we've got polar bears that can survive in ice. Why? Because their fur protects them from what? From the cold. Let's move on. The resources available to organisms include what? It includes food, water, light, and even shelter. Okay. And then this can be considered limiting factors because they regulate the number of organisms within an ecosystem. All right, they can regulate the number of organisms within an ecosystem. Why? Because if the food is plenty, then we'll see that the ecosystem is big. But if there are limiting factors like the food, the water, shelter, even light, these are the limiting factors, all right, of an ecosystem. Remember, an ecosystem doesn't have a size. It depends on what is there, all right. Let's move on. The number of individuals of a population that an ecosystem can sustain without damage to the environment is termed what? Is termed a carrying capacity, all right. An ecosystem has got a carrying capacity depending on what is there, depending on food. All right. And then let's move on. If we're talking about that, it can be an excessive amount of resources such as food. A population of animals will thrive and its size will what? It will increase greatly because there is bountiful of food. But as the population increases, the amount of food available to each individual decreases because the animals are increasing in number now. Do you get that? Tricky, isn't it? All right. That's why we've got food chains, we've got food webs. It all counts there. And then once a resource is being used quicker than it can be replaced, the environment becomes damaged. If the resources can be used quicker than they can be replaced, the environment becomes damaged. That's why during Arbor Day, we always say, you cut one tree, you plant how many? 2 or more. All right. So that we replace that tree. This is called unsustainable use of resources. All right. If the number of organisms using the resource is not reduced, the environment may not recover, and the specific organisms will become extinct in that area. For example, we've got dinosaurs. Dinosaurs are now extinct. Why? Because they vanished. All right, we've got a lot of theories, but for sure we know that they are extinct. Therefore, the other animals that we have, we must try to protect them. That's why we've got what? We've got national parks, because we want to protect them. That's why we've got Addo Elephant National Park. Remember when Addo Elephant National Park started? People were hunting down the elephants. And then the Addo Elephant National Park was put in place. And then now we've got quite a lot of elephants because of national parks. Right. And then factors that affect the balance within an ecosystem. A disturbance within an ecosystem causes a disruption in the recycling of nutrients, availability of resources, and interactions between organisms in a community. All right. If there is a disturbance in an ecosystem, or a disturbance in recycling of nutrients, and even availability of resources and interactions between organisms in a community, that's where the problem is now. All right. Because the ecosystem must be maintained. Right. We must sustain our resources. We must not overuse the resources, because we want to protect the resources that we have for future generations to enjoy as well. All right. These disturbances may be natural or even human interference. All right. Some disturbances are natural. We don't have control over the natural disasters, but we've got control over human interference. Do you get that? Let's check. If the balance of an ecosystem is disrupted, organisms must adapt to those changes. At times, we've got different climatic changes. As it is now, we've got a lot of what? Of changes. Why? Because we are not treating our world with respect. We are not practicing sustainability on Earth. But if we do that, then resources will be there, then it will be sustainable, because future generations have to enjoy what we are enjoying now. The animals mustn't be extinct, and even protecting the plants. Okay. And then disruptions caused by natural disasters are usually temporary. They occur gradually, giving communities a chance to what? To adapt, to recover. What is it to adapt? It is to change. Do you get it? It is to change. The disturbances caused by human interference are usually more permanent and occur so suddenly that communities are unable to adapt and to recover. They are unable to change and recover. All right. So let's be very careful. Natural disruptions to the environment have occurred since life on Earth began. This has been the driving force behind the great diversity of life on Earth. Natural factors include extreme changes in patterns of weather and climate, such as what? Such as floods, such as droughts, extreme and sudden changes in temperature, unusual events such as volcanic activity and even tsunamis. All right. If we're talking about natural factors, they include extreme changes in weather patterns. All right. Even on climatic patterns. We've got floods. Now we are having a lot of floods, even flash floods. All right. It is because of how we treat the earth. All right. At times we dump a lot of litter. When you go outside your classroom now, you might see a piece of paper. Why? It is litter. We are littering our environment. But if we pick all the litter and place them in bins and take them for recycling, then we'll have a good and healthy earth. All right. And then we also have droughts. It is because of how we are treating our earth. And even certain changes in temperature. For example, our earth is protected. We are protected, especially from the ultraviolet rays, dangerous ultraviolet rays. We are protected. Okay, there is a layer of gases that is protecting us. But if we continue burning plastics, all right, and then if the carbon footprint is becoming bigger and bigger, then we are going to face problems, all right? Because you are going to experience a lot of diseases. For example, cancerous diseases, especially skin cancer. Mostly it is caused by what? The dangerous UV light. Okay. And then we also have volcanic activity and tsunamis. All right. For example, tsunami means a big wave. It is Japanese. Tsunami is a Japanese word meaning a big wave. What happened when we had this tsunami? All right. It is when an earthquake strikes in a sea, and then the water from the sea will go back into the sea, and then it will shoot out as a big wave. Then it sweeps the dry land. Do you still remember the tsunami that happened in 2012? It swept a lot of places from Japan, India, Thailand. It went into different countries, killing a lot of people. All right. These are natural disasters, but they are caused by human activities. But if we're very careful, we are not going to experience these. So let's be careful. All right. Even mudslides, we now experience mudslides. Okay. It is because of not caring for the earth. And then extreme high temperatures can cause a lot of what? Can cause a loss of water in plants and animals. And it can cause droughts. Droughts occur when there is little or no rain for long periods of time. For example, let's look at this picture. This is a picture of land that is dry, no vegetation at all. And the other picture is a picture of a man in his fields. The crops have dried. Why? Because there are no rains. Therefore, there is no food for animals. Okay. Then you'll see animals dying because there is drought. During the dry season, the grass will not grow. It will just struggle to grow because the plants need water. There will be no food for the grazers, and they will either die or even migrate. Some animals die because of what? Because of drought. For example, you can see these cows are dead. Why? Because there is no food for them. Because there is drought. And then you can see the animals migrating. For example, in national parks, you'll see a lot of the animals migrating to areas where there is food, to areas where there is good food or where there is water, because they'll be looking for pastures. And then, however, when the rain returns, plant communities can recover quite quickly due to their ability to produce seeds that can remain dormant for long periods of time. Okay. And then floods can put a strain on the community. They destroy a lot of things. For example, let's look at the cyclone. You can tell this is a cyclone because there's a lot of wind and a lot of rains. And then we've got floods on the other picture here. You can see a city is now flooded. The cars are being swept away because of the floods. Okay, that is very bad. And then we've got floods again. Look at what floods do to the homesteads. The whole area is flooded. You can just see the roofs of the homesteads. And then look at the other picture here. Animals are suffering because their area for grazing is flooded. They are now in water. What's going to happen? They will die. if it remains flooded for a long period, for days, they will die because they are not built to stay in water. They are not marine life. Okay, they live in grasslands. Therefore, it is very bad what is happening. Floods and extreme sudden changes in temperature can put a strain on the biotic community of an ecosystem, but recovery is quite rapid. And then we've got diseases on the other hand. Diseases will influence the balance in an ecosystem. For example, an epidemic may cause a large drop in the number of specific population. Right? You still remember what population is. If we're talking about population, we are talking about the same kind of animals or the same species of animals. For example, if you've got elephants, we call that population. These animals can live as a group and they can reproduce. That is a population. But on the other hand, we've got a community. When we're talking about a community, these are different populations, or you can say different animals that will live within an environment. Okay. This has a knock-off effect causing other populations to either decrease or increase. Okay. It is because if there is an epidemic, a large number of animals will die. Right. And then if there is climatic change, this disturbance is temporary and communities can recover. Sometimes natural disasters such as volcanic activity may cause an ecosystem to change permanently. Do you get that? For example, we've got a picture here. You can see this animal, what's happening on this mountain. There is volcanic eruption. Therefore, the ecosystem will be disturbed. Because do you think there will be animals living on that mountain? No, they will die because of the volcano. That's why we are saying the ecosystem can change permanently. It is because of such incidents. And then we are going to write an activity grade 8. Question number 1 says, state 3 factors that disrupt a balanced ecosystem. Question number 2, use the food web to answer the following questions. We've got a food web here. Remember, when we are talking about a food web, we are talking about different food chains, all right, that are linking. And then good rains have caused a large number of locusts to arrive in the habitat. Question number 2A suggests how this will affect the number of the striped birds. B, are these disruptions caused by natural or human factors? Let's answer the questions. I'll just give you 4 minutes to answer the questions. Start answering now. Alright, grade 8, hope you are done answering the questions. And then let's check question number 1 together. State 3 factors that disrupt a balanced ecosystem. Let's look at the factors. There are quite a number of factors, but some of them are these ones. Floods can disrupt an ecosystem, droughts can disrupt an ecosystem, even sudden change in temperature can disrupt an ecosystem. All right. And then let's look at question number 2. Use the food web to answer the following questions. Suggest how this will affect the number of striped birds. All right. If good rains have caused a large number of locusts to arrive in a habitat. The answer is the number of striped birds will increase. They will increase. Why? Because they've been good rains. Therefore, it means there is a lot of food for these birds. Therefore, they are going to increase. And then B says, are these disruptions caused by natural or human factors? These disruptions are caused by natural factors. Why? Because the rains is natural, it's not man-made, right? And then even the temperature changes, even the floods, okay? Even the volcanoes, the tsunamis, all these are natural. Do you get it? Good. And then human factors can disrupt the balance in an ecosystem. Human factors that influence a balance in an ecosystem include what? It includes poaching and hunting, and then even water, air, and soil pollution, farming, deforestation, and mining. All these are contributing factors that disrupt a balance in an ecosystem. For example, if there is poaching, if people poach for animals, remember poaching means what? Illegal killing of animals, all right? And then they will disturb the ecosystem. How? Because they are going to remove a certain number of animals. They are going to disturb the food chain, okay? These are human factors. And then even water, air, and soil pollution. At times, human beings pollute the water by throwing the waste in the water, killing marine life. Then the ecosystem is no longer balanced. And then we've got air pollution. People burn a lot of things. They burn plastics. They burn quite a number of litter, different types of litter. And then that is not good. They pollute the air. All right. And then we also have cars that are not roadworthy. They will be smoking. And then what will happen? The air is going to be filled with what? With carbon footprint. We call it a carbon footprint, okay? And then soil pollution. At times we dump waste in the soil. We dump chemicals. And then the soil will become infertile. All right? There won't be any plants that will grow from that soil. Then we've polluted it. All right? And then let's look at farming. At times we cut down trees, we clear land, we clear forest because we want to make fields. We want to plant something. That is farming. All right. We are destroying the natural ecosystem because we are disturbing quite a number of animals that were living in that ecosystem and even destroying quite a lot of plants that were thriving in that community. And then we've got deforestation. When we talk of deforestation, it is the cutting down of trees. Remember during Arbor Day what we always say. We say if you cut one tree, you plant how many? 2 or more. All right. For example, we've got a forest that is man-made. The Black Forest in Germany. All right. Trees were cut down. And then what happened? They were planted back. They planted a lot of pine trees. And now we've got a forest. We've got the Black Forest. All right. Which is now a what? A World Heritage Site. And then we've got mining. At times we overdo these things. All right. You overmine, then it is a problem. It disturbs the ecosystem because you keep on mining and mining. All right. Let's move on. All these are human factors. The influence of humans on an ecosystem is big. It is enormous. All right. The human population is increasing with the demand for more food. Habitats of animals are cleared to make space for farming and cities. The habitats of animals are being destroyed. Look at this rabbit here. The place is now cleared. How is it going to survive? The place is cleared. For what? For building cities. All right? Even maybe for farming. And then look at this forest. It's a thick forest, but it is being destroyed because people are cutting the trees down. They are busy deforesting that area, and they are not reforestating it, which is a cause for concern. And then the trees in forests are also being cut down to clear space for building what? Houses and factories. You can have a look at these pictures. They cleared land and a city was built. Land was cleared and farms were made, and they are continuing cutting down trees, clearing land for different things. And then during deforestation, trees are cut down. During deforestation, trees are cut down and the habitat of animals is destroyed. And then farming also destroys the what? Different habitats. These are human factors. This is what human beings are doing to the environment. Okay. We are disturbing the ecosystem. Some animals suffer and die because of our behavior. And then people hunt for animals for food, but with the increase in the human population, too many animals are killed. Remember, we said human beings, we are omnivores. We benefit directly from plants and also indirectly. Why? Because we eat plants and we also eat meat. And then poachers are also killing. They are illegal killing. They are illegal wiping out animals. And then the rhinos are being killed for their horns. This is a cause for concern. And then poaching of endangered animals and overharvest marine life is a lasting damage to the ecosystem. Okay. People are busy killing rhinos. People are busy fishing, overfishing, which is not good. Okay. And then poaching is illegal. All these factors contribute to an imbalance in an ecosystem. All right. You can see a picture of rhinos there. They are on the red data list because people are poaching for them. And then mining and other human activities add to the pollution of water, air, and soil. Right. Look at that picture. Human beings are littering and they are dumping their litter almost everywhere. In each and every corner there is litter. Even the factories are dumping their waste in rivers, and marine life is suffering. It is dying. And then look at the factories. Look at the smoke that is coming out. All that is pollution. Okay. It leads to an imbalance in an ecosystem. At times, as human beings, we pollute the environment and produce waste and litter. Look at that woman. She is throwing away litter, and the factories are busy dumping their waste chemicals in rivers and dams. Okay, all these human factors destroy the ecosystem. They kill the animals. Okay, and then they lead to a change in the amount of oxygen dissolved in the water and the death of some organisms. Raising water temperatures increases the rate and decay in the water, which decreases the oxygen content of the water. And then we've got activity 2, which we are not going to write. You are going to do it at home. Let's check the questions together, but you are going to write the answers at home. Question number 1 says, what are the factors that disrupt a balanced ecosystem? Question number 2, in which way do people remove animals from an ecosystem. 3. In which way do people destroy the habitats of animals? Okay, you're going to do this at home, but we've just put the answer there for you quickly. We've got farming, pollution, deforestation, mining, and poaching. That also includes the what? Hunting. And then in which way do people remove animals from an ecosystem? People remove animals by poaching and hunting. And in which way do people destroy the habitats of animals? It is because of deforestation and farming and even pollution. Let's summarize our lesson. Right, let's look at the pictures there. We've got a cyclone. Okay, this is strong wind with rains. It destroys the homesteads, it destroys the cities. And then we also have droughts. These are natural factors. We've got droughts, animals die because of the droughts. And we've got floods where the homesteads are destroyed and even the animals die because of floods. Because now
Excellence
they are submerged in
is
water.
a habit.
They are not supposed
Excellence
to live in water.
is a quality you have, a quality I have. It's a quality we have when we honor what is true to us. Yes, we are gifted differently. uNkulunkulu akasinganga ngokufana. Excellence is striving for your best. Whenever you have a particular project, test, homework, uzibuze, ask yourself, is this my best? Can I put in more effort? Excellence is striving to be in the top 1% of the area in which you are gifted. And so I challenge you, in every single thing that you do, in every single area that you're gifted in, whether it's sports, it's academic, ucula, whatever that gift is, strive for excellence.
All right, grade 8. Let's look at our summary. We've got cyclones, all right? There are strong winds and rain. For example, let's look at this picture here. The cyclone is destroying the homesteads. It is destroying the ecosystem. It's a natural factor, and we've got droughts as well. Animals are dying because they don't have what? They don't have food. Do you get it? Because of the droughts. These are natural factors. We don't have control over natural factors. And then we've got floods. Let's look at this picture. The homesteads are in water because of the floods. The animals are in water. They're submerged in water. Why? Because of the floods. And these animals will die in a few days. Why? Because these animals are not marine life, but they live in grasslands. Do you get it? It is a cause for concern. Okay. And then on the other hand, we've got the cities. People are destroying the land. They are destroying the forest so that they build cities, and people are dumping chemical waste in rivers. Okay. And then it kills animals. It brings an imbalance in ecosystem. And some are overfishing. They are removing a lot of fish. Okay. They are killing a lot of fish. Therefore, it causes an imbalance in the ecosystem. And we've got a lot of factories. Okay. And then it increases the carbon footprint. Do you get it? Then it is a cause for concern. These are human factors. All right? We've got control over them. And then our homework, will quickly write it down, explain what would happen to the ecosystem under the following situations. Question number 1, when plants die. Then 2, a change in weather or climate, such as rainfall or floods. Then the brief preview of the next lesson, we're going to be doing adaptations. Thank you very much, grade 8. Hope you have enjoyed the lesson. Make sure you always sanitize, maintain social distance, and always wear a mask. So long for now.